Hello everyone. For a moment, close your eyes and imagine that you are still at school today. You've had a hard day, studying all day, and you just want that final bell to ring so that you can take all your bags and escape home and get a much needed rest. But hey, what if your school day is not going to end with the final bell, but with 30 minutes of music, laughter, and fun with your friends? How would you feel? Excited? That is exactly what Kerala rolled out in June 2025. Daily Zumba sessions to de-stress students and keep stress and drugs at bay. If you think back to your school days and think about standing in an assembly line going 1, 2, 3, 4 and repeat, and I'm sure you will say 3 cheers and hip hip hooray for the kids. But far from cheers, some people erupted in outrage, calling this DJ-style mayhem, a Western invasion that undermines our moral fabric and an intrusion into their religious beliefs. Today we expose the hypocrisy, fear-mongering and outright misogyny behind the Islamic clerical uproar. Stick with me, because by the end you will see this isn't just about dance. It's about freedom, health, and who gets to control young minds and bodies. Hello, I am Anand and you're watching Pale Blue Thoughts, the channel which promotes the Article 51H of the Indian Constitution. Well, I still remember my PT periods with dread most of the times. Not the ones where the PE master was busy and we had one period to play and do our own thing. But those days when the PE sir used to make us stand in the hot sun and make us do drills in the form of exercise. I bet the physical education teachers were the most hated among students, right after math teachers. But the scenes have changed over the years. Even in India, today's education is not about making the students toe in line or cram up for the exams. Schools and the entire education system in almost every country has undergone a huge overhaul since the days I went to school. Today, there are a lot of child psychology in use, and instead of beating the poor kids or rolling their ears between their hands, the teachers employ more scientifically and psychologically accepted methods of teaching. And so back in March 2025, Kerala's Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan proposed a simple idea. Ring a bell 30 minutes before school ends, gather on the ground and dance Zumba to some fun and upbeat music. No special costumes, just uniforms and trainers. By early June, every government school in Kerala had begun daily Zumba sessions. The aim was clear: give kids a healthy stress buster. But instead of high fives, the state saw fatwas. Yes, some self-styled moral guardians came onto the media and started calling this vulgar, alien, even DJ-style mayhem. A prominent member of the Wisdom Group, an organization comprising of Mujahid Muslims, Abdullah Basil, even sat on a television debate and said, today they are asking kids to do Zumba. Tomorrow they will host DJ parties. Then they will start using drugs. The entire generation of kids would be corrupted. Do you recognize this sort of a statement? This is a typical example of a logical fallacy called the slippery slope argument. For example, you do an action A. A will lead to B, B will lead to C, and eventually to Z, which is something horrific. Therefore, we must forbid A to avoid Z. It is like saying, if we allow one thing, it will keep snowballing until we end up with something awful. So, what Basil was saying was this, that harmless Zumba music will escalate to Bollywood dance parties, which would lead to lashings of alcohol and drugs, which would ultimately lead to moral anarchy. Now, let us see why this is slippery. Bollywood songs and dance numbers are already everywhere. Movies, weddings, and nobody is banning those. Supervised Zumba in uniforms doesn't suddenly turn into unregulated clubbing. The secretary of the same group, T.K. Ashraf, came on air and said that he wouldn't let his kids participate in these dances and called this a prime example of vulgarity. He claimed that mixed gender dancing in revealing dress violates moral codes which would lead to murders in the long run. What makes this argument slippery is this. There is no evidence that a brief uniform-based exercise routine causes any of those horrors. Each step is assumed rather than demonstrated. The slippery slope arguments are often raised to instill fear in people who are listening. They just follow the false logic and start to assume that, hey, this is real bad. But what does a skeptic do in this case? One should ask for real evidence at each link rather than surrendering to the fear of an imaginary chain reaction. That is the way to overcome a slippery slope argument. So, who are these wisdom youth group, you may wonder? When a few people show up on some YouTube channels and TV and start spewing nonsense, one can't help but wonder where they got the thick skin to say such utterly stupid things. So, here is a brief on the wisdom group. They are a splinter faction that broke away from the Mujahideen group. And once you hear the reason they broke away, you will truly understand just how much wisdom they actually have. It all started at a Mujahideen conference in 2007, where they began a scientific discussion on questions like, are jinns real? What do they do? Where are they found? Can they harm us? Jinns, also known as genies, are supernatural beings in pre-Islamic Arabian and Islamic traditions. Now in the 21st century, there were some people who believed that continuing to live in fear of jinns, demons and angels and trying to please them would only make Islam a laughing stock on social media. But the others, they insisted that jinns are very real. They debated what jinns eat and drink, how they get scared if they hear a bathroom door slam. Eventually, those who supported the jinn side of the argument broke away and formed a group of their own. And thus came into being the organization called Wisdom Youth. Remarkable, isn't it? Wisdom Youth? It is more like wisdom tooth, something which causes unnecessary pain and better off removed. Anyways, let us see a video of a typical Zumba session in one of those schools. So, what did you notice first in the video? The children? Their dance moves? Their clothes? Or did you notice the happiness in the young faces? That is what I noticed when I saw this video. And there lies the problem with these religious fanatics. They cannot stand to see happiness in the faces of people, because their book tells them that this world is just a test by their God. The real life happens in Jannat after one dies. This superstitious notion is what drives them to shun all the things that bring happiness to humans, be it music, dance, laughter, joy and happiness. Did you notice what Taliban did as soon as they assumed power in Afghanistan? I'm sure you must have seen many videos of fanatical Islamists destroying musical instruments, because music and dance is haram as per Islam. Why? Because some illiterate desert dwelling, brutal warlord in the 7th century Arabia did not like them. He wanted people to fight for him so that he could attain his political motives. He did not want his followers to get distracted from his aim. When the initial reactions faced a backlash from the major sections of the society, these fanatics changed their tunes. Then they said that this move by the government was undemocratic and this was thrust upon the kids without consulting with the religious leaders. First of all, the state insists that Zumba is optional. No child is forced into doing Zumba. The participation aligns with the Right to Education Act's mandate for holistic and inclusive learning. And it is done under the guidance of trained teachers. The entire routine is done wearing regular school uniforms, single gender sessions if preferred, mixed only in co-ed schools. On one hand, children break into smiles, stretch out stiff limbs and breathe in freedom. On the other, some religious leaders bristle at the very sight of their joy. But the main point that I want to speak about is regarding the statement about forceful introduction of Zumba and the talk on it being autocratic.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
Who are these people who should be consulted before a government introduces something in their schools? On what grounds should religious leaders be consulted on matters of education? For that, there is a panel which the government has already in place, which includes people who have worked in the education sector, psychologists, and other experts who have a better understanding of what is better for our children. Not to forget the parents-teacher associations of these schools. All these people can be consulted. Now, why in the wide world should any government consult priests or mullahs or pastors in matters in which they have no say, expertise, or need? If they have any say at all, it should be limited to the madrasas that they run. There they can make decisions, but not at a secular school level. Now, coming to the other statements and words used by the clerics, let us take the words revealing clothes worn by children. Schools mandate standard uniforms. For them, anything apart from a burqa or hijab is a revealing cloth. And about calling it vulgar, what is their stand on children who are born a Hindu, Christian, or even atheist? Are they hinting that the majority of children wear vulgar clothes? In fact, with the huge rise in ex-Muslim and atheism in Kerala, these Muslim clerics are losing the ground in which they are standing on. Even children are shunning them, whereas their earlier generations revered and feared them. People troll them left, right, and center over here. The sand is slipping away from under their feet. So these are some ways that they still try to stay relevant in the society by wielding their religious clout. But this is not going to last. The society is evolving. The political reign of religion is slowly ebbing. What this whole ruckus reminded me was how street dogs often run behind trucks and cars, barking at the top of their voices. They cannot do anything against the bigger vehicles and may even come under them and get crushed. If not, after running a few meters, they slowly return back from their worthless chase with their tail between their legs, tired with the futile effort. This is the same thing that is going to happen to these mullahs as well in the end. Even the leftist government, who generally supports Islam because of the vote bank, stood firm this time, surprisingly. Education Minister V. Shivankuti fired back, saying Kerala society is not stuck in the Middle Ages. I hope the government won't backpedal from their stance like they did when they introduced gender-neutral uniforms or changed school timings. That time, the government buckled down because of protest from the religious front. Next, there are issues with the mixing of genders. Boys and girls already share classrooms, labs, play areas. and nobody bats an eye at these. So why single out a specific form of exercise? Moreover, mixed gender dance fosters empathy. Students learn to partner across genders, reducing bullying and gender-based stereotyping. So why? Well, I am the answer. Islam is a religion of segregation. First, it segregates between believers and non-believers. And then within believers, it segregates men and women. This is widely practiced in Muslim weddings where women and men who have come to attend the wedding are separated by a veil or a curtain so that they cannot see each other. It doesn't matter if they are husband and wives, but when they come to a wedding, they should not see each other. Forget sitting next to each other. The same thing is practiced when Islamic religious speeches are made in public spaces. This misogyny of segregating women is ingrained in Islam. Next is the introduction of alien or Western culture. May I ask, what culture do they practice every day? Arabian? And where does Arabia lie in relation to India? Due west? Doesn't that make it Western culture? While condemning Zumba, many of the same clerics ignore wristwatch and smartphone and YouTube and laptops and TV, gadgets invented entirely in the West. They use all these extensively, including, well, European toilets. Hypocrisy at its highest form. Let us be brutally honest. In their world, every beat of music that isn't a mosque chant is a threat. Every laughter-filled dance step is a rebellion. And every child who moves freely is one less mouth to feed their dogma. So when kids dance and enjoy themselves, then their alarm bells will ring. Just look at the fatwas that has been issued by them in the past. Don't draw, don't click pictures, don't listen to music, and God forbid, don't sing. Don't wear bright clothes, don't dress up. No perfume, no lipstick, no movies, no dancing. Don't hang out in groups. Don't go out alone either. Just stay frozen in a corner. Joy is haram. All this is so you can become the favorite of the all-merciful. Honestly, at this point it feels less like a religion and more like an over-controlling cult with a God complex. Since this channel also deals with science extensively, let us now see what does science say about Zumba for kids. Zumba is a fitness program that combines Latin and international music with dance moves, offering a fun and energetic workout. It is not just a dance, but also an aerobic exercise that can improve cardiovascular fitness, increase flexibility, and build strength. Unlike yoga, Zumba is supported by scientific evidence demonstrating its positive impact on physical and mental health. Science calls Zumba a stress buster. A study conducted in India showed that 3 weeks of Zumba training showed a significant drop in perceived stress after regular Zumba sessions. A study done in 2023 showed students doing bi-weekly Zumba reported 32% less stress than peers in standard PE. Their sleep improved, irritability dropped, and even exam focus got a boost. But what about the rest of the world? From California to London, educators integrate Zumba into PE to tackle anxiety and sedentary lifestyles. Because it is fun and effective. Forget all this. Zumba is widely practiced in India across the thousands of gyms and fitness centers. This double standard by the religious fanatics reveals the real issue. It is not sweat on the floor that scares them, but relinquishing control over young hearts and minds. They want to drum in the superstition to every mind as possible, whether it is young or old. Condemning Zumba while ignoring child abuse, substance addiction, and rising anxiety in schools is not just hypocrisy, it is sabotage. No, Zumba is not the threat. The real threat is this regressive moral policing that treats laughter as sin and physical well-being as blasphemy. If your faith trembles at the sight of a child dancing. Maybe it is not the child who needs discipline. Maybe it is your ideology that needs therapy. Children don't need shackles. They need music. They need freedom. And if your version of God can't handle that, then maybe it's time to let kids dance without asking for his permission. Now, here is where you can come in. If you believe every child deserves health, joy, and the freedom to learn and enjoy, do these three things right now. 1. Like to show support for student well-being and comment to let me know your thoughts on this whole issue. 2. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any of my videos. Number 3. Share this video with parents, teachers, and anyone who thinks Zumba dancing is dangerous. I shall meet you in my next one. Bye.